the course of human events. When the bonds of union grow fragile. When disorder threatens liberty, more than tyranny ever did. There arises a moment when men must gather. Not as subjects, but as architects of a new order. The defects in the Articles of the Confederation were so glaring, that working of government became very difficult. Two most pressing needs of the government were the power to impose taxes and to regulate commerce. To overcome these problems, a convention was necessitated. As leading men like Washington, Madison, and Hamilton felt that Congress must control the commerce, they started making efforts in this direction. Madison moved legislation in Virginia for a convention, but his motion did not carry. However, Maryland and Virginia appointed commissioner to consider the question to trade with Potomac. The laws of the two states were the same. Meanwhile, Virginia saw that Pennsylvania and Delaware were also interested in having common trade agreement. Consequently, it took a lead and suggested that all the states should send delegates to a trade conference to discuss the matter of trade and common currency. In September of 1786, a small gathering took place in Annapolis, Maryland. Known as the Annapolis Convention, it was attended by delegates from only 5 states: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Virginia. Its official purpose was to address the commercial disputes tearing the states apart. But beneath the surface, it was about something more. The delegates, including Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, recognized that trade problems were only symptoms of a deeper disease, the weakness of the Articles of Confederation. The Annapolis Convention accomplished little on its own. With so few states represented, it lacked authority to act. Yet its final report, drafted by Hamilton, proved monumental. It called for a broader meeting, one that would bring all the states together to render the constitution of the federal government adequate to the exigencies of the Union. The message was clear: reform the Articles, or the Union itself would collapse. The call from Annapolis resonated. Even those wary of strong government could see the cracks widening. Congress, though reluctant, endorsed the idea. A convention was summoned to meet in Philadelphia in May of 1787. Its purpose was officially modest: to revise the Articles of Confederation. But among the visionaries, Madison, Hamilton, and others, the true goal was bolder: to create an entirely new system of government. The Convention of Philadelphia has been regarded as the greatest of all the conventions ever held in America. The convention met in the same building where a Declaration of Independence had been made in 1776. Almost all the leading men of the land were present in the convention. The most prominent leaders who participated in the convention were George Washington, Franklin, Madison, George Mason, John Dickinson, James Wilson, Alexander Hamilton, Robert Morris, G. Morris, Edmund Randolph, John Rutledge, Charles C. Pinckney, Rogus Sherman, Rufus King, and Elbridge Gerry. Certain other prominent personalities were conspicuous by their absence. There included John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and Henry Hancock. Most of these persons were either away to Europe, or were unwilling to participate in convention. Commenting on the composition of the Convention of Philadelphia, Professor Elson says, "An abler body of statesmen has not assembled in modern times than that which made our Constitution in 1787, nor has any assembly met with truer motives or produced a grander result." The whole number of delegates was 55, and there was scarcely a man among them who had not been distinguished in the state or in the field, who had not been a governor, a member of Congress, or a commander in the army. A few had served in the Stamp Act Congress in 1765, others had their set names to the immortal Declaration in 1776, and one had formed the Plan of Union at Albany in 1754. Could these men have looked into future of the United States? One a vice president, and many others foreign minister, member of Supreme Court, cabinet officials, and United States senators. These were the men who forwarded the Republic and started it up its marvelous course of prosperity. Commenting on the membership of the convention, Madison says, "There was never an assembly of men charged with a great and arduous trust, who were more pure in their motives, or more exclusive and anxiously devoted to the object committed to them, than were the members of the Federal Convention of 1787. The delegates came with varied goals, but common filaments united them. They sought to create a government strong enough to govern, yet restrained enough to preserve liberty, to provide for defense and security in a dangerous world, to regulate trade and stabilize the economy, to establish a system of laws and enforcement that all states would respect. From the outset, the delegates set rules that would shape history. First and foremost, secrecy. The doors and windows were shut. Guards posted. No delegate was to reveal the debates within. This secrecy, controversial as it was, allowed men to speak freely, to argue, to compromise without fear of public backlash. Second, every state had one vote, regardless of size. This preserved equality among states, even as larger states pushed for proportional representation. Third, decisions would be made by majority, not unanimity. The Articles had required all states to agree for amendments, a formula for paralysis. The convention chose a more practical course. These rules gave the convention the freedom to attempt the unthinkable. The convention was confronted with various problems, some of them of highly controversial in nature. Consequently, sometimes the debates of the convention became so fierce that the convention almost broke down. However, generally the delegates succeed in pulling together and resumed the difficult task. In the first instance, the convention was expected to produce a document, accepted to all sections of the society who were socially, economically, and religiously different from each other. Resultantly, the convention had to resort to a lot of bargaining, and the decisions were possible due to accommodation and compromise. Secondly, the Congress was not a truly representative body of all the sections of the society. It represented property and industry rather than ordinary human beings. As a result, the rights of the people were completely ignored and the rights of these interests were protected. This explains why the document produced by this convention did not contain any Bill of Rights. However, the states were given the discretion to grant rights to their people whenever they thought proper. Soon after, there was change in the thinking and Bill of Rights was included in the Constitution. Thus, the Philadelphia Convention was born of crisis, fostered by vision, and delivered by courage. From the debris of the Articles of Confederation, the United States Constitution arose. Not perfect, but durable. What led to that summer in Philadelphia was not merely weakness, but the recognition that liberty must be guarded by structure and independence must be bound by union. And so, in the sweltering halls of Independence Hall, the framers planted the seeds of a republic that more than 2 centuries later, still strives to live up to the promise they dared to envision. Here in Philadelphia, they built not perfection, but possibility. A framework strong enough to stand, and flexible enough to endure the storms of centuries.